You're listening to the Infinite Banking Mastery Podcast. Did you know that you could build a tax-free pool of wealth that's liquid and accessible all your life while building your retirement nest egg? Gain full control of your financial future and stop relying on the government and banks. The wealthy have already discovered this wealth-building secret. Now it's your turn to get financially secure without following the conventional wisdom that keeps you in debt to banks. Now here's your host, Valerie LaRocque.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here and for listening. Today, I thought I would do an episode on underwriting and how long does that take? I've worked with some clients recently who were not expecting underwriting to be a pretty long time. And I'm not usually expecting it to take too long either. But for these people, it has taken a really long time. And so I thought I would do a podcast on this topic. For full underwriting, you can expect it to take around, I would say, 3 to 6 weeks. The speed with which you get through full underwriting really has a lot to do with you, because once the application is submitted, once we've gone through and asked all the basic questions, your social security number, your driver's license number, your beneficiary selection, simple stuff like that, your address, that gets submitted, and then the exam company will reach out to you. We work with a third-party exam company, or all insurance companies do. That third-party exam company will reach out to you, set up a time to come over. They can come to your home. They can go to your workplace, wherever you want to meet them, to complete health questions, lifestyle questions, and take blood and urine. Now, depending on how much insurance you are applying for or your age, there are sometimes additional requirements, such as something like an EKG, that can be taken while they are there. But getting this appointment scheduled is oftentimes what slows the process down. Usually, this exam company will reach out to you right away once the application has been submitted via text, email, phone call, and then it's up to you to schedule. I find it very easy to just schedule online through the link they send and look through the calendar and select a time for myself. So it depends on how soon you set up that appointment, really is going to project how long your underwriting will take, or that will be a big part of it anyway. And I always suggest when you are setting up for these appointments that you select a time in the morning if you can, or at least at a time of day when you're okay with fasting up until that time. It's going to be way better for you if you take your blood test having fasted all night with just water. Do not load up on the coffee before you see the examiner. No coffee would be great, and instead just water and be ready for that appointment. Or if you can't get it in the morning, then maybe schedule it later in the day, and it'd be great if you could still fast for at least, I would say, 6 hours prior to that appointment. It's just going to make all your numbers and your health and everything come out better from the testing that they do. So the examiner comes over, asks some health questions, takes whatever blood and urine or other testing that the underwriter has requested. Then that information gets submitted to the insurance company. Now, those health questions, if they give the underwriter any red flags for something they feel should be checked out more or something they feel they need more information on, they will order medical records. This is not super common. They do not order medical records automatically with every person. It's really just something they would like more information about, or that they can't detect enough information. Now, it's important to be honest about anything you've been diagnosed with, any medications you've taken or are on right now when you are completing the application or completing these health questions with either an admin person or the examiner. Because if the underwriter discovers later that you were not truthful and they discover it and you actually were not being truthful, then it can be a decline even without any more explanation. I've had that happen to someone before. So it's important just to be honest about what's going on and what you're taking or what you were diagnosed with. You don't want the underwriter to find something that you did not disclose on purpose. That's going to be real bad. And consider too, if you're taking nicotine in some form, maybe you're not smoking, maybe you're using nicotine gum or something like that, you'd want to disclose that too. Oftentimes it won't have an effect, or maybe if you stopped using it a year ago or something because they ask, how recent you've been using or chewing that nicotine gum or whatever it is. So you want to be honest about those things, and usually it'll be okay. So they're not going to say, oh, no, you're a heavy smoker if you quit chewing gum a year ago and you're honest about it, or if you quit smoking a year ago or so. Usually they're looking for about a year of not still using that product. And when it comes to other things, like they've gotten more lenient, at least my primary company has gotten more lenient when it comes to cigars or marijuana. So now they allow a person to smoke cigars maybe up to 2 times a month, maybe three. I can't remember the exact number, but it's okay. They won't automatically consider you a smoking rating, which is great. And same for marijuana usage. They will allow recreational usage maybe 2 to 3 times a month and still allow it to be a non smoking rating. And they actually prefer that it's recreational use than prescribed use, because if you've had the marijuana prescribed, now they're concerned about a health condition. So if it's something you're recreationally using and you're not using or smoking very often or whatever, then it's more likely you're not going to have that smoking rating. But even if you end up with a smoking rating, it's not the end of the world. The good news is that that only applies to the base premium of your whole life policy, if we're talking about whole life only here, because it does affect a term policy. A term policy will reflect all of the cost, and it's just going to be up and down based on whatever your health rating is. But when it comes to a whole life policy, the premium or the cost of your health rating does not affect the full premium, only the base premium, which is usually the lesser of the two between the base premium and the paid up additions, that makes up the total premium for your whole life policy that we are designing for the purpose of infinite banking. But if you are a smoker or smoking marijuana regularly, many times a week, you're going to be considered a smoking rating, and there's really nothing we can do about that. But there is still the difference. I have a difference between a preferred smoking rating and a standard smoking rating. So you can still be considered a healthy smoker, which is great. And after 1 year, if it just so happens you have quit all smoking or you don't do that anymore, we can always re-underwrite, go through underwriting again to try to get that health rating improved, the smoking rating dropped off. It doesn't cost you anything. And if your rating somehow were to end up worse, then you would be able to retain the health rating that you already have. You don't have to switch health ratings. They're not going to take your other one away from you. It's just an opportunity if you feel your health is improved or you're no longer a smoker, that we could go through that health underwriting portion again and get those health ratings updated on your current contracts. Now, once the underwriter has had an opportunity to review the health questions or your answers to the health questions or the blood work, if they see any red flags, they are likely, like I said, to request medical records, and that can really slow everything way, way down. You see, doctors are usually not in a hurry to be shipping off medical records. Now, of course, they have admin people and all of that in the office, but they're not trying to get them out there as fast as they possibly can. Maybe they're overloaded. Maybe too many people are asking for medical records to be sent out. And that's part of the reason. I'm not sure what it is, but it's usually a pretty slow process. Some doctors are quick and they get the records out really quickly, but then some, it just takes a while, and that really can slow down the underwriting process. Now, once they receive these records, if there's anything there that's concerning, it could continue. So, if you have something in there from a doctor that states that they wanted you to have a specific follow up or a specific test to make sure that you don't have such and such diagnosis or whatever, or to just make sure you're still doing well, or something, the doctor or the underwriter, excuse me, could still want more information. They could want you to complete whatever test that was written in the records that your doctor had wanted completed. They could want to see that finished out. They could want to see additional records. Maybe the doctor wrote out something that the records, or that you had surgery done from a different doctor or something like that. Then they're going to want the records from that other doctor. So it could just take a while if there's other information that causes them to want more information from the records. And I think too, doctors they're taking their notes the best they can, and they're putting the information as they see it. And sometimes what they write in there is concerning to the underwriter, even though you weren't diagnosed with it or something like that. Just the wording the doctor puts in there may not reflect well, or may make the underwriter think there's more of a concern than there is. So it's good to know what is going into your medical record as well, and make sure that it's correct, or at least what you feel about your own health and what you and the doctor discussed. And during the process of answering the health questions, or once the underwriter has seen that, if they see anything concerning and they want those records, even if it was something minor, or you're saying this was no big deal, or I was fine, or nothing even happened, the underwriter will still want to see the records. And so that just takes as long as it's going to take. I have an example. I have been working with a family who is wonderful. I've been working with the mother of a family, and she is very, very intelligent and very detail oriented. I really love talking with her. And we were talking recently because her daughter was just approved finally. She was born in December. Okay, newborn baby. We put an application on her in April. So we applied for the insurance in April, and she just got approved very recently, early September. And all this time, we just keep expecting approval. We just keep expecting she'll be approved any day. And babies often are approved very quickly. But usually with children, especially in the past, underwriters did always request medical records for all children. And it was because they aren't doing a blood and urine. There's no other way for them to really monitor or to find out and discover if there's anything else going on or wrong in the health history. But recently, I would say maybe in the last year or so, I've noticed that they don't always request medical records, or the process has just gotten much faster. But every so often, it's not fast. It is very slow. And so this poor woman, we request the records, and then a little while later, the medical facility comes back and they say, I'm sorry, we don't like your form. Thanks for sending that in, but we're not going to be able to use that. You have to have the mother sign this form, our own form. So then you've got to send it out for the mother to sign. And most often, when these documents need to be signed, these other medical release forms, they do not accept an e-signature, DocuSign. They want a wet signature. So now you have to go out and find a printer and print it out and scan it in if it's not something that you just have already and is easy for you. Sometimes it's not a quick, easy process. So we had to get this other document signed, and then we submit it. And then a little while later, it takes a long time. They're saying, hey, where are the records? Where are the records? And the medical clinic is saying, give us a minute, give us a minute. We'll get it when we can. And then they say, oh, well, actually, we need a driver's license. We cannot proceed without a driver's license. And so luckily, they allowed us to send the driver's license in. We thought the mother was going to have to go to the medical facility to show them her driver's license, but luckily, they allowed us to send it in for her. But all of this takes its own amount of time. We send our form in, takes a little bit of time. We don't want that form. We want our form signed. We send it in, takes a little bit of time. And then all this stuff is taking time. And then when they finally have all that they need, it still might take 2 weeks or so for them to actually send the records. A lot of times it will help if you call in or you reach out and you request that they hurry it up a little bit. It might help the medical facility send it to us faster, but you just never know if it's going to be a slow process or a quick process. And so once we finally did get these records in for this family, the child was approved instantly. What they were concerned about was no concern at all, but they just couldn't see it. And so they had to have those medical records. The underwriters are just being as thorough as possible because they want to make sure you're not on your deathbed right now as you apply for insurance, and that you're okay and in good health relatively. And so a lot of times too, I hear from people, oh, I'm very healthy. My spouse is very healthy. We're doing great. But then I might get some medications that they're on or something. And it turns out that although they're feeling good and they're doing well and their medication maybe is helping them or they're on the right track to improve their health, the underwriter might see it differently if they are on some strong medications for some things, or they've had cancer a few years back or something like that. A lot of times, too, though, if you're on a medication for, say, high blood pressure or high cholesterol or something like that, being on certain medications for conditions that you or health conditions that you are dealing with is a good thing. So underwriters will look at it as, oh, good, they're on top of their health, they're taking care of that, and they're doing what they need to help their body to get back into good health. So having to be on some medications and stuff isn't going to be like an automatic decline or certain health conditions. You just might not end up being a preferred rating if that's what you thought you would receive. If there was something going on in your health history, you just might end up being an average rating. There are also some different classes of health rating between standard or average and preferred. And of course, there are some worse ones if your health is a little bit lower or you're a little less healthy than you thought, but that doesn't mean that you can't get insurance or that you will be declined. If you're unsure, we can always talk about it. I can mention it to an underwriter and we can get an idea before going through the whole process of underwriting and an application and all that. We can get a good idea based on the concerns that you have or the medication that you're taking. I can take all those details and present them to an underwriter and get his best guess. I've talked to people as well in the past who are saying they're doing very well. They haven't seen a doctor in 20 years. They're very healthy. And then are surprised when we do the medical visit and have maybe higher blood sugar levels or something else going on. I think it's a good thing for them to be aware of it. Maybe they were not aware at all. And now this is something they know they should look into to make sure that they are okay. And if you've had something like cancer in the past, it's not an automatic decline. The underwriter will want to know everything they can about it. What stage, how long, what kind of treatment, when did the treatment end, like all sorts of information like that, just so that they can have a clear picture of your healing process, of your treatment process, and what stage the cancer was and how it went for you at that time. But again, it's also super common for an application to be submitted, for you to schedule your examiner visit as soon as possible, and for everything to be approved in like 3 weeks. It doesn't have to take a super long time. And even when it comes to our accelerated underwriting, this underwriting comes with no visit, no exam visit, no blood and urine. It's also meant to be approved very quickly for those who have a clean health history. It does come with a soft credit check, which full underwriting does not come with. So it's meant to be pretty quick. However, if the underwriter sees a red flag again, because in this case, we're taking the health questions down and we're asking those questions to you, if the underwriter sees a red flag, they will request those records. And of course, that accelerated underwriting will be slowed way down if they request medical records. Another thing is they could also decide that they would like you to meet with an examiner and have a blood and urine completed. Now, this underwriting process that I'm going over is underwriting with my primary life insurance company. I'm not saying that every life insurance company goes through this exact same process. They all have their own process, and the other companies I work with are very, very similar, but maybe not exactly the same. I also just wanted to mention that if you were interested in disability insurance and that's something you also wanted to acquire, it is possible to apply for them at the same time, both life and disability. If you do so, then the disability or the life insurance side is likely to wait a little bit for the disability side because disability is even more thorough than the life insurance side, since there is a higher likelihood of you becoming disabled before age 65 than dying. Disability is very thorough when they complete their underwriting. If you were to apply for one and then the other, or say you applied for life and a few months later you want to apply for disability insurance, we can use the same exam information. If you had a blood and urine done, we can use that same information. Disability may want some additional information, so the examiner may have to come back, but usually it's just a new application and completed health questions over again. And we can use the same blood work and all of that, so you don't have to do that again. Or if you want another life insurance policy and it's been under a year since you last completed that blood work, that usually can be used again as well for that. And it would just be a new application for that new life policy. And so, if all this talk about underwriting is making you feel that you should get into underwriting and you'd like to get started with a life insurance policy for the purpose of infinite banking, or just simply to cover and protect your family, or maybe you want to look into long-term disability in case you were to become too sick or too hurt to work and you're still going to need that income. If you'd like to partner with me, feel free to reach out to me at Valerie@alphaomegawealth.com. I would love to hear from you and chat with you. Thanks so much again for listening, and I hope you have a great week.